All right, I'm joined right now by Senator Orrin, of course, the fine state of Utah, Senate Judiciary Committee member. On today, we have so much to get into him with, not the least of which this Supreme Court pick dust up here. But I'd be remiss, Senator, if I didn't get into something that Ted Olson has mentioned about defending Apple from what he seems to think is government overreach or something that could lead to a very slippery slope, that in getting information off the San Bernardino terrorist phone, the government then will have access to all sorts of devices anytime it pretty much wants. I think that's the gist of his argument. What do you make of that?
Well, it's a civil liberties argument, and I think a pretty good one in some ways. As I understand it, now I may be wrong, but I've been led to believe that the phone wasn't even the terrorist, that it was his employer.
That's right. That's right.
And if it's an employer's phone, then that creates a whole new set of problems. I think Ted Olson is I think very appropriately raising these issues and raising them in a careful, deliberative way. You know, all of us would like to be able to knock out an encryption of a terrorist, but keep in mind, I think what Apple's worried about is that there will be someday where that this would lead to a backdoor opening where they really can't protect their phones and they can't protect the privacy that the phones actually allegedly have. So it's a much more significant problem than just let's get the encryption broken on this one particular phone because of terrorism. So it's not as simple issue.
No, and you're quite right about that, Senator. My only point with Mr. Olson was, what if it was a one and done deal? In other words, you got the information off of this phone that provided the information that the feds wanted, but the feds have no idea how you did it. You didn't reveal this backdoor way that you did it. That they just have the information. They know how the heck you did it. That's kind of the clumsy point I was trying to make here. Now, his point, much more eruditely presented, was, well, be careful about that, because the government is a lot smarter than you think. I think that's what he was saying. And then it would be exposed, and it would be expected. I'm just arguing that phone is a fairly immediate piece of evidence in a recent terrorist attack in the United States. We need to get to it fast.
Well, it's an interesting question, because I can see why people who own the phone would not want the encryption broken. I can see why, you know,
but the people who own the phone, by the way, the town that owns the phone, the city, it's a city.
They don't care.
They don't care. They're okay with this. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's my understanding. They don't care, but I still can see why Apple is concerned, because you never know what's on that doggone phone, and they don't want the back door opened, and they don't want some slick way of getting into for law enforcement to get into encryptions throughout the Apple system. And that's a real concern. It's a legitimate concern.
But obviously what they're trying to find is a middle ground and having Congress settle the issue rather than the back and forth, Senator, with various judges and courts on encryption, what have you. What do you think of that?
Well, I haven't found Congress to be that good at resolving some of these issues. You have all kinds of different viewpoints here in Congress, some of which are outrageous and some of which are too low of an effort by Congress. So most people in Congress, I think, are serious about these issues, and I think it's a pretty tough issue for Congress to solve. I'll put it that way.
Well, I still add you, obviously, every Republican member of the Judiciary Committee, I assume yourself included, Senator, opting not to hold hearings on any potential nominee for the Supreme Court President Obama might put forward post the death of Justice Scalia. Others have raised serious issues about that the president still has another 11 months to go. If you find it so egregious who we might potentially pick, you can reject it in confirmation hearings, but be careful what you wish for, because the Republican president will be dealing with this as well. What do you think?
Well, you know, there never has been, in at least the last 90 years, a situation where where a person is both nominated and confirmed in an election year. So this is a very serious problem, and frankly, I think the Republicans are right. They're very concerned about.
Well, you're right. Not named senator in the same year, but in Ronald Reagan's case, you did have a candidate who was named and then not approved until the last year. But
yeah, but the nomination occurred a year and a half before, so there's a real difference there. And of course, look, we're in the middle of one of the most awful presidential campaigns I've ever seen in my life. It's a tremendous mess, And to get this involved in that mess where everybody is fighting each other and kicking each other in the teeth, I just don't think it's the right atmosphere to bring this up. And frankly, I think I don't think a president should be nominating people to the Supreme Court, a lame duck president. It's just that simple.
So the president has said apparently to Josh Earnest just a few minutes ago, no Supreme Court nominee interviews have been conducted yet. So what do you do, I guess, in that case, Senator, if the president goes ahead, interviews some candidates and submits a name to the Senate, that candidate, he or she, will just have to sit this one out till after the election, if then, or a new president, entirely a new Congress? What?
Well, remember, this president can nominate whoever he wants to. He has an absolute right to do that. On the other hand, the Senate has an absolute right not to take it up if they think it's the appropriate thing to do. And they also have a right to handle it any way they want to, because we have the opportunity to confirm or not confirm, to bring up or not bring up. And frankly, I think the vast people in the Senate on the Republican side think that bringing it up in this meddling political year is not the right thing to do, and this president should understand that.
Any of the more vulnerable members who are up for re-election themselves, your Republican friends, are they worried that you might have made their re-election fight more difficult?
I don't think so. I think most people understand that this is a serious issue, and it's one that really ought to be resolved within certain norms.
All right, Senator Orrin, thank you for taking the time. Always a pleasure.
Well, it's nice to be with you.